Custodes seem pretty popular at the moment, whether that's because Superman likes to play them or that the Warriors now come with innies or outies or both. Regardless of your reasons for collecting Adeptus Custodes, all I care about is trying to help you get them on the tabletop as quickly as possible. I'm Peachy, and this is Peachy Tips. Cheers. Now, I've always been a fan of the Adeptus Custodes. I may not have like vast collections of them painted, just a handful here and there, but I've always liked the look of them, the aesthetic, that whole gold armour and the red mixed together. I mean, that's how I always traditionally saw them as well. Whereas in recent years, they've had a bit of a revamp. There's been lots of other branches or unit types added in. There's so much now you can do with Custodes. Honestly, as an army goes, you don't need lots of minis. They're quite fun projects to paint. So it makes sense to do a video about painting Adeptus Custodes. So in this video, I'm going to be covering the Shadowkeepers, which are the ones in the dark black armour, the Solar Watch, which are in the white with the gold trim, and then there's the Aquilian Guard, which are probably my favourite because I'm a big fan of purple and gold. So you may know that about me. I'm a big slash player. These guys don't look slashy, which is good. So yes, Custodes, cool models, don't need lots in your army. Let's get painted some Custodes. I'm going to start first with the Shadowkeepers. They're the guys that guard the dark cells beneath the Emperor's Palace. I know, why would you stick like cells beneath a palace? But hey, they did that. It's full of ancient terrors from ancient times, and it's their job to guard over them. And if they ever got released, these ancient terrors, they'll destroy the Imperium. I'm sure that's what they tell everyone. But reality is they've probably just got some underground poker game going on and just don't want anyone to know about it. But yeah, Shadowkeepers, let's get on with those guys. So first up, what we're going to do is going to get some death metal and we're going to dry brush that over a black undercoat. This is the quick and easy way of picking out gold trim. In fact, I'm not even going to make the trim different from the armour. I am just going to dry brush the whole lot, but concentrating a bit more on the actual trim itself, if that makes sense. So it's still going to have a nice metallic vibe all over. Very much like a Custodian has, it's both gold armoured and gold trimmed. I'm just doing the same, but with a darker tone. Got a slightly lighter dry brush here of tainted gold just to pick out some of the extremities and edges. It's not necessary, but it just adds a bit more punch to the edges if you need it. And then if you want to, just for a bit more punch and depth, I'm just going to get some black, thin it down slightly, and then just pick out the panels. So just like the odd ones here and there, like on the shoulder pads, and like greaves, fan braces, maybe a bit of shoe if you need to. It's entirely up to you. This is totally optional. I just thought it would look cool just to add a bit more depth in some of the deeper recesses. Then I'm going to pick out any robes using some red. I've thinned this down slightly. I like to do multiple thin coats, and it just goes into the cracks a lot easier as well. Sometimes I can over thin it, like you can see here in places. That's fine. I'd rather it be multiple thin coats than one thick streaky coat. But like I said, it just goes in the cracks a lot easier. Less effort required. Don't forget to do the tassels as well. So you got the tassel on the front. If you do make any mistakes, just wipe off with your finger or get a brush that's dry, wipe off with that. And just, any details you want red, pick them out. The Alaris Terminator, he's got these obviously tassels coming with shoulder pads. And then we have the plume as well at the top. So yeah, just a couple of coats there. And again, because it's thinned down, it just flows into those deeper recesses of the plume. Once it's dry, I'm just going to do a second coat just on some of the raised areas where it just needs a bit more punch, make it a little bit more opaque so it's not too wishy-washy. Now I'm just going to work around picking out any silver details on the Guardian Spear or Guardian Axe, Guardian Halberd, the Guardian thing, his weapon, his big weapon, his shooty spear. Then any other silver details. And then after that, I'm just going to pick out the tassels with a bit of white. Now originally I was going to do these red, but actually I thought white looked a bit better. So I'm just going to go around, just pick those out. Again, if you make mistakes, don't worry, you can always tidy back up after. And then pick out any gems. This is a really quick and easy way of doing gems. So I'll just go around picking out all of them with a little bit of white, just dropping it in here and there. There's a few gems here and there, and also the eye lenses as well. If you do make mistakes, you can always tidy back up with some black or some death metal, whichever makes sense. Then I get some dark tone and apply that over the reds, the silvers, as well as the white details. Again, try and avoid that dark metallic if I can, because I want to keep that as it is. Again, if you do find it pooling in places, don't worry, you can just wipe off your brush, soak off any excess. And of course, don't forget to do that plume as well. And if you do find it pooling, just soak it off. Then I'm going to get some magic blue and apply this to any gems. This is like the easiest way to do really striking simple gems or lenses. His eyes were a bit pulled there, so I just soaked off any excess and then just carried on with my life, picking out the rest. Again, with it being slightly thin, just a little bit of water gives it a bit more punch. Now normally custodians have blue glowy weapons. I thought for this guy it feels red feels right, so I just started dry brushing up some reds. So over that black halberd I just started off with a dark red, moved up to an orange or slightly burnt orange, a little bit more of a punchy orange after. And then on the flat sections I just thinned down a bit of black just so it wasn't so chalky or gritty. Just did a couple of coats of that just to darken it down a bit as well. And then if you want to, the next step is just to tidy up those colours. So what I'm going to do is just get some of that red for the robe, and any areas that just seem a bit blotchy or just need a little bit more love, I'm just going to go over and just tidy them up. For the actual plume itself, just for a different texture, I dry brushed that same colour, and then I picked out the white bits here. I kind of supposed to pick it out and tidy up, but it ended up being more of a highlight, and that wasn't intentional. It was just, I was just being a bit too neat. And if you do make mistakes, like I've done here, just get some of the previous colour or the colour that's around it, and then just tidy up. No biggie. Now if you want to highlight the robes, you can just dry brush it up like I'm doing here with a slightly lighter red or orangey colour, or you can do some jaggedy highlights as an option as well. It's entirely up to you, whatever your skill set allows. I quite like doing the jaggedy highlights because I don't have to be super neat and precious about it. I just tap my brush along the edges. It looks a bit torn and frayed, which is quite nice. And then for that blade, just for a bit of crackle energy, I'm just going to thin down some of that orange, and I'm just going to run that around, making like little Y's and N's and A's and W's. Basically just trying to make like little lightning bolts pretty much. And then progressively move up to a slightly lighter orange as well, just for a bit more punch, a bit more concentrated energy, if you like. And then just add a couple of dots for a bit more intense power. Unlimited power, if you like. And then some black just to add a bit more depth, or if some of your highlights are a bit too thick. And if you want to, you can always dry brush that detail on the blade, like I'm doing here. And there we are. Our Shadowkeeper is now done and ready to wander the dark cells looking badass. So the Shadowkeepers are done, really chuffed with the results of these. They do feel a little bit chaosy, the way I've approached it. Very much the Sons of Horus Justarian sort of style colour scheme. But you know what? I ran with it, I liked it, and it's quick and easy, and that's all that matters. So I'm gonna move on to the next one, which is gonna be the Solar Watch. These guys basically protect the solar system around Terra. It's their job to make sure no external threats reach Terra. So they just guard around the solar system, Jupiter, Mars, the moon, sorry, Luna, not the moon. It's got a special name. But yeah, that's their job, to guard and stop things from getting to Terra. I guess if things did get to Terra, do they all get fired? Interesting. Don't know. Let me know in the comments. Right, Solar Watch. So first up, over a white undercoat, what I'm going to do here is get some gold. I'm now slightly thinning this gold down for two reasons. One, it flows into the cracks a lot easier, so there's less effort on my part. And secondly, as it pulls away from the edges, it will give a bit of a highlight. Some places it's a little bit lighter than I anticipated, but that's fine because I can always do a second coat if needed. But just by thinning it down slightly, like you can see, it's just flowing around the edges and doing a lot of the legwork for me. Less effort on my part is the way I see it. So work your way around, picking out all those details. You can always change your mind later on and remove some gold or add some extra gold, depending on how you want it to look. Then I'm going to get some sepia tone. This is pretty much straight from the pot, and I'm just going to apply that all over the areas that I want to be slightly creamer, so that's the armour, and also adds a bit of depth to that gold armour as well. So I'm kind of ticking two boxes here, shading the armour and also the gold. Then I'm going to pick out all the black details with some thin down black to start off with. You could use a speed paint, whatever. I'll just again thin it down because it runs in the cracks a lot easier. Again, work my way around, picking out all those details. So whether that's pipes, details on the gun, as well as like the black undersuit, anything you want silver. Again, you can always apply a second coat if you need to, which is what I'm doing here. So where I want some extra punch, I'm just going to apply a second coat. Then anything that I want brown leather, I'm just going to get some brown and apply that all over the gauntlets. Again, slightly thinned down. Could use a speed paint, just prefer to use this colour because it's on the palette, and I like it because it looks like leather. Then it's a matter of picking out any silver details. Now because I've covered a lot of that already in black, it means I'm just picking out the raised areas of the silver, so less work again. And I'm also going to do the blade silver here as well. This is a quick and easy way of doing an energy blade. So I'm just going to put that out with some silver, probably do a couple of coats of that as well. And then any other buckles and bits. Things like the pipes on the chest, I'm just going to run my brush along because then it will just pick out the raised areas and not go in the cracks. And anything else that looks like it needs a bit of silver in. Then for the robes, I'm going to get a red, again, thinning it down. I tend to find when I've done a white undercoat, I do thin my colours down a bit more because it runs in the cracks and gives me a natural highlight. It is just a speed painting habit of mine. You can make it a little bit thicker if you need to, or not thin it down as much. It's entirely up to you if you want to thin it down or not. I like thinning it down, it's just a habit of mine, and it saves on highlighting later on. Of course, don't forget the plume, because that's got a lot more texture to it. Having it slightly thinned is just going to go in those cracks a lot more as well. Then I'm going to wash over everything that's pretty much not the bone armour. So that's going to be some gold details, the silvers, the browns, the reds. I'm just going to get a coat of strong tone. Again, if you do find you get some on the bone armour, you can just dry your brush off and soak it away. That's fine, it does happen, especially if you're speeding around like I was then. And the reason for adding it to the gold just adds a bit of depth in some of the deeper recesses, that's all. If you are applying it to the robes, if you do find it pooling, again, just soak off any excess. I also forgot to pick out the design on the shoulder pads, so I did that after. Then it's a matter of picking out any gems, so I'm just going to get some white on those and work my way around. And then for the energy blade, I'm just going to get some magic blue, and I'm just going to apply that to the blade itself. Again, a quick and easy way of doing an energy blade. And then with it being slightly thinned down, I'm going to apply it also to the gems, because I add a bit of a border, but also as it pulls away from the top part, it gives it a bit of a glow. And there we are. We now have a custodian that's battle ready, or tabletop ready. So my first set of highlighting is just to dry brush up. I'm going to dry brush up the blue glow, the silver, the black, and the gold. And I'm just going to do a bit of a flick all over on those details. So very minimal effort. Again, if you find you get some of this on areas that you don't want it to, you can tidy those back up. So like here, tidy up the red. So if I accidentally got some silver on that, that's fine. I could just tidy up that now. I'm also going to dry brush that on the plume as well, just in case it needs a bit more. For the energy blade, if you feel like it lost some of its punch, you can always just go back over a little bit of that magic blue. And if you feel like some areas need a little bit more depth, just get some black or thin down black and just run it into like some deeper recesses, especially on the black gun casing around that gold filigree if you think it needs a bit more punch. So for highlighting the cloth, I'm just going to get a slightly orangey red here. I'm just going to pick out some of the edges, mostly where the light's going to catch. So I'm not going to like highlight everything. I'm also going to dry brush the plume because it's a slightly different texture, so it gives it a different feel of material. And then I'm going to move to an orange now, again just on those raised areas, just being a bit picky about which areas I pick, not going mad. You can use the edge of the brush as well. And again, I just like to do those little jaggedy highlights just for a little bit of roughness, make it look a bit tatty and old. It's entirely optional, you don't have to do that. And again, I'll use that same orange and dry brush the plume. Now sometimes reds can look a little bit too orangey or a little bit too pinky, depending on how you've highlighted them. So what I'm going to do here is get some cream and just pick out some of those raised edges in preparation for a glaze, which is what I'm doing here. Then to knock it back if I need to, I'm just going to get some of that base coat red, thin it down into a glaze consistency. So that is just making it a little bit more watery, consistency of milk. And then what I'm going to do here is neatly apply that. I'm not pulling it into the recess, that's not the intention, it's just to knock the highlights back, but also dropping it into those recesses makes them a little bit lighter as well. And then any tidying up that might be needed, if I've got some red on the white or whatever, just work my way around tidying up that bone armour. Here to start off with, I was using a bit of bone, and then in the end, just for some highlights, I moved on to some white. I also changed my mind on those rivets, original gold, they got lost a bit, so I changed that. For our first skin, what we're going to now do is get some brown and just coat that all over. I've thinned it down slightly, so I'll just do a couple of coats of this. Then to go in the depths and details, I'm just going to apply some strong tone. Again, in place, you might just need to soak some off if it's pulled too much. Then once that's dry, I'm just going to tidy back up the extremities, like you can see here. Just picking out things like the cheeks, the nose. And then for some lighter highlights, I'm just going to do the same thing again, just moving up to a lighter colour. Again, picking out the cheeks, the nose, the brow, the ears, all the extremities, just for a bit more punch. Of course, you've got shaved hair at the side, so I'm just going to pick out that nice bit of bold head, grey haircut like that. It's good. You can just work your way around doing the brows. These model faces are tiny, so there was a bit of guesswork here because I couldn't quite see because the lights were bright. So maybe it's old eyes, I don't know. So a bit of it was guesswork. Yeah, just working my way around, picking out those details out. And then any areas like the leather collar, as well as the hair, I'm just going to black those out. Slightly thinned it down. You can always do multiple coats if you need to. And don't forget to do the eyes and the mouth as well. I just got a little bit of red, same one I used for the cloth on the Shadowkeeper. And don't forget to pick out the eyes. And there we are. Optional heads, helmet or not helmet. And there we have it. Our solar watch is finished and ready to defend the Imperium from threats in the solar system. And I really like the option of the heads here. Yeah, can't decide helmet or not helmet. That's why I pinned them. The solar watch is done. I love the general look of the solar watch, like white and gold. Tricky to do, granted, like picking out the gold trim, but once you've got that gold trim on and you've washed it all over, it's just plain sailing from there. And you can use this red robe scheme that we've just done for this next guide if you wanted to just do more traditional looking Custodes. So anything that was like plume and cloth on the guy I've just done, just follow that for now. But we're going to move on to the Aquilian Shield. I love the concept of these guys. I love the visuals of these guys. Purple and gold. If you know me, you know I love purple and gold. It is just top tier colour scheme for me. However, the background of these guys is great. What their job is to protect someone that's super important to the Imperium. These people probably don't even know they're important to the Imperium. But suddenly, in the middle of a battle, there could be an Imperial Guard officer just wading his way through cultists. And then one of these guys appears next to him, or two or three or whatever. And he's like, what's this guy doing here? Why has he appeared? Because for some moment in time, this guy is super important to the Imperium. Maybe has to like relay a piece of information or get to a certain part of the battlefield that's key to the advancement of the Imperium. And once he's done that, they then bobby off. I mean, they're there to protect the Imperium, not the guy. So, I mean, he could be then surrounded by even more baddies, and then they just, you know, disappear and leave him to his fate. But my rule is every model is a Necromunda model, and there's no reason why I can't use this guy in Necromunda. Anyway, I've waffled on enough. Let's paint an Aquilian Shield. So first up, what I'm going to do is get some strong skin tone, and I'm going to apply this all over my gold undercoated Custodian. What I'm doing here is just going over the whole model. So I'm using this straight from the part, applying it all over, and that's just going to drop itself into the recesses. If you do find it pooling, just soak off any excess, but yeah, work your way around the entire model. Now I'm just going to get some silver, and then I'm going to start dry brushing all of that over the gold details. All this is going to do is give me a nice bit of punch to that gold, and it's best to do it now because you've not added any other colours, so you can be as well rough as you like. You don't have to be super neat. Then I'm going to get some black. Again, I've slightly thinned this down, very similar to how I did with the solar watch, although this is probably not as thin down as the solar watch, to be fair. And apply that all over the weapon casings and anything I want black. Again, with it being thinned down, it's going to run in those cracks, which saves you so much time later on when you like come to picking out the silvers and stuff. And once it's dry, if you need a bit more punch, you can always add a second coat to some of those black details. Again, don't forget the joins and any other things around the back. They're very detailed models, but you know, picking out the odd little bit here and there, like the pipes and stuff, just helps break the shape up. And again, just apply that second coat if you need it. Then for the gauntlets, fan braces, I'm just going to get myself a nice leathery brown, bootstrap brown here, and picking out those gauntlets. You just work your way around. And I'm also going to use this colour for weapon handles as well. Again, that's just entirely optional. You can use what you want. Just thought it looked nice. Then picking out the silver details, just going to get myself some silver. For the pipes here, I'm just literally running my brush across because it's not going to go into the cracks. It's just going to pick out the raised areas and then start picking out all those other silver details. Because you've done all the legwork of running all that black all over, you don't have to work too much in getting in the recesses. The shade's going to do that anyway, and you've already got that black in there. So just pick out the raised bits. You can just work your way around, finding anything like vents, pipes, whatnot. Oh, of course, can't forget the studs on his gauntlet for punching people in the face. Then for the robes, because I really love the purple tone of Diabolic Plum, I'm now going to apply that to the robes. Slightly thin it down with a little bit of water. I'm just going to apply that all over, and I might need to do a second coat here and there maybe, where some of that gold showing through. And of course, don't forget to do the plume. Traditionally, these are supposed to be red, but I just think it looks cool with purple, so I'm going to do it purple, because it's my army. I do what I want. Well, figure. I mean, it is a one-man army, I suppose. Or one-woman army. Once you've done a second coat of that Diabolic Plum, if needed, I'm just now going to wash all over everything except the gold armour. So I'm just going to get some strong tone and then just apply that all over the bits that are leather, silver, black, purple, and avoid the armour if I can. And if you do get on the armour, dry your brush off, soak off any excess. Then for the blade, what I'm going to do here is base coat that in white. Probably have to do a couple of coats of white, or an off-white as I'm using here. Also the same for the gems, just pick those out. They're quite nicely detailed, so they're actually really, really easy to pick out. And I can get a second coat on the axe. I do quite like the axe. I like the spear as well, but I like the axe. And I'm going to get some magic blue and apply that to the blade. Now, the downside here is gravity tends to ruin your day, and it just starts to pull at the base of the actual axe. So top tip, once you applied it, just put your axe in a nice horizontal position like this, and then just let it dry. And of course, don't forget to do those gems as well, work your way around. And then pretty much the model is tabletop ready. So what I'm going to do now is then just move on to just picking out some of the raised areas with a tidy up. You could do this as a tabletop standard if you wanted to, but I like to reserve this for the next steps. So if you're happy with the model as it was and it's all based, you can just tidy up if you need to. I'm going to use that same colour as well and dry brush over the plumes like I've pretty much done with the other custodian heads as well. Then once that's done, I'm going to get a slightly lighter tone, and then like I did with the red cloth on my solar watch, I'm going to do the same thing here, just picking out the odd bit where the light's catching. And if you want to, you can always do the jaggedy highlights for a bit more of a roughed up look. It's entirely up to you. I like jaggedy highlights because less effort. And again, that lighter pink being used as a dry brush. And I'm going to use an even lighter pink just on the tips as well. And that slightly pastely pink is then being used at the toppermost parts of the robes as well. Again, doing the jaggedy effect, make it feel a little bit more worn. Again, you don't have to pick out everything, like I've said with the previous robes, just little bits here and there. Then I'm going to do a glaze. Again, with a glaze, you're thinning it down to the consistency of thick milk, so using a lot of water here. But again, I'm avoiding trying to pool it too much. It's more of a tint, a nice tint across the entire lot. So it's getting on the recesses, it's getting on the raised areas, it's knocking those highlights back, and it's lining up those recesses. Once it's dry, it will dry nice and matte. And if you think you've lost some of that punch, you can always go back over it if you need to. Optional, entirely up to you. I'm going to get some Brigade Grey and just run that around the edges of my axe. Again, just using the edge of my brush because it gives me a nice consistent line. In some places, you will have to use the tip of your brush, but it doesn't matter. And then what I'm going to do is thin it down, that Brigade Grey, so a couple of paintbrushes of water, and then just do some little wiggles, very similar to how we did it on the Shadowkeeper, except I'm just doing one colour here over that magic blue. And then for some more intense sort of crackly areas, or where it's just a bit more powerful, I'm just dropping in some of that Brigade Grey. And then once that's done, I'm going to get that magic blue. Again, it's the same consistency I used when I originally washed over, and that's just going to knock back that white a little bit, so it's more of a lighter blue. And if you need to, you could do this at an earlier stage. I just thought that gun could do with a little bit of a lighter dry brush, make it look like more of a used metal. It's like black that's been chipped and battered. Totally optional, this bit. And for the lighter skin tone, again from a white undercoat, what I'm going to do here is just get some Paratrooper tan, thin it down. I prefer to start off just doing a couple of thin down coats because then I could just build it up as opposed to working the opposite way around, because it then naturally gives me highlights. I wanted a bit more warmth, so I used some Peachy flesh, and then just moved on after that was dry, using a bit of bone for things like the cheeks, the brows, the nose. Then it's just a matter of picking out the eyes. I did get a bit on the hair there, but I'm not fussed because I'll paint that brown. Black out any collar, and then just pick out the hair. I used the same brown I used on the skin of the other head, just because it was on the palette. You use whatever colour you want to. And then that same colour for the lips as well. And then the 360, you can see the purple and gold in all its glory. And yeah, I think this is my favourite. And as I've always said, every model is a Necromunda model, and this will fit nicely into my Necromunda games. Now, I've painted plenty of Adeptus Custodes over the years, whether that's for videos or for collections for the studio. And honestly, painting the idea of painting red and gold was a bit like, oh, I don't want to do red and gold. But you know what? I really enjoy doing the stuff for this video because you can do red and gold, and following this guide, you can do that. I know I've mentioned it at least twice already. But it was really fun just painting like the Shadowkeepers. I've always liked the Shadowkeepers. They've got a great vibe. And then not worrying so much about doing the gold trim on those was actually speedy, less stressy, and the overall result kind of just matched with the standard Custodians, except it's just dark metallic armor instead of being like bright gold armor. So you don't have to sit there picking out the trim if you don't want to. Just spray it black and just dry brush up metallics. Win. The Solar Watch, keen favourite of mine. I did a video for those years ago for Warpaint TV, and as much as I enjoyed doing it, I'd forgotten how much I liked the aesthetic of white and gold. But yes, they were good. Sticking on the red plume and the red robes, very bright, but you could use that for whichever scheme really. I made sure as well when I did the Shadowkeepers and the Solar Watch, the reds, there was like a darker red, a different tone of red. So there was two types of red tones used in this video, so it's up to you which version you want to use. That's kind of why I did it. So you've got options. And then we have the Aquilian Shield, which again, standard gold armor, slightly darker than probably standard gold armor, but you know, it depends on your sprays and the colors you're using. But rich purples, nice regal purples. Again, mixing and matching, you can do what you want with this scheme, or guide even. So yes, really enjoyed doing this, had a lot of fun. And it was just nice painting just some Custodes, not doing it for a while. And I'm going to use all of them in Necromunda. I really am. So I've got 3 cool characters that I can just drop in every now and again. Why is there a Shadowkeeper in Necromunda? Why is there a Shadowkeeper in Necromunda? Tell me in the comments, why is he there? Solar Watch. Necromunda's not in the Terran sector. What the hell's he doing there? And of course the Aquilian Shield. Why would the Aquilian Shield be at Necromunda? Well, it's obvious because, you know, Enforcer Peach is there. Enforcer Peach is in the Underhive, rocking it out, taking on the bad guys. He's important to the Imperium. Or maybe it's Jewel of Jewels, the famous Escher Queen. Maybe she's super important. Maybe it's like making sure she gets those weapons out to the Imperium in good time. Anyway, waffled on enough about why the Aquilian Shield are in Necromunda, or any models in Necromunda. Every model's a Necromunda model, hashtag just saying. These videos wouldn't be possible without these beautiful people. Now, if I was a member of the Aquilian Shield, I would be obviously sent out to protect all of these amazing people you're seeing scrolling up next to my bold face, my sort of Constantine Valdor face. That's who I am. I am Spondon's answer to Constantine Valdor. And if you don't know who he is, he's someone really important in the story. Yes, maybe. He's just a Custodes. He's a bold Custodes guy. Badass. Everything I'm not. Everything I am not. Regardless, I've waffled on enough. I shall leave you to whatever fate befalls you. If you're really lucky, some guy in gold armor and purple robes might show up and save the day. Chances are that's not going to happen because they're not real.